This is a Flying Cow production.
Book 1, Water. Book 2, Earth. Book 3, Fire. Long ago, Nickelodeon introduced a series called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It combined great anime-style animation, strong storytelling, heart, and humor. It was great, and everyone that saw it loved it. Until one day, a terrible movie came out which everyone hated. But my co-host Loren Collins knows none of this because he's never seen the show. And that's why we are watching every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I believe this could be Loren's new favorite show. Or at least top 20.
Well, hello. Let me change this. Here we go. Yes. Hello and welcome back to Comets and Cabbages here on the Flying Cow, the show where we talk all about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I, of course, am your host, the Flying Cow himself, Clay Johnson, and I'm enjoying myself a grumpy monk.
My name's Amanda Van Heil, and my monk is not so grumpy.
And I'm Loren, and I can feel my arm again. Ow.
Yeah. Yes. Very good. Very good. Yes. We are, of course, like I said, we are talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, going episode through episode, introducing Loren to the show. Loren, progress report, thumbs up, thumbs down. How's it going so far?
Coming into this one, we're at a pretty high point for this show. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Good.
It can only go downhill from here, honestly.
Good to know. So, Loren gives it a marginal thumbs up. Yeah. At this point. All right. Well, I will say, a lot of times at the beginning of these, we try to do a little banter, talk a little bit before we jump into the episode. And I just so happen to have something that Loren himself has planned not too long ago. I mean, I guess almost a month ago. It was my birthday. And Loren told me that he was going to get me something and send it to me, and told me that it was going to arrive and that I was not to open it until we got onto the recording. So I have this envelope. If I can put it where people can see it, it says "Happy Birthday to me" on it. This is an unopened package. I will say it did come in an outer envelope, which I did open. And then the moment I saw this one, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to open it. So I didn't. It is still sealed. It is still intact. So I am going to open this, and we are going to, I guess, do something with this right here on this podcast. You're going to get my, live reaction here. So let's go ahead and it is sealed in the conventional envelope style. Sticky. I do not have one of those fancy letter openers. I just use my thumb. Good old fashioned thing. So, okay. It is a wristband. Oh, it is a blue wristband, kind of the colors of our podcast. And it says live long, grand, or long live grand. It does have the Vulcan sign, but it long live grand is what this says. And on the back it says we do call 911. I don't know what that's about, but yeah, it's good to know. Yeah.
So I got this from a comedy show. I went to a stand-up performance at the City Winery downtown Atlanta. A few weeks ago. The headliner was Steve Hofstetter, and he had some opening acts.
Right.
One of his opening acts, I wish I could remember the guy's name right now, and I can't. Had a bit in his stand-up routine about calling 911, Grand's fallen or whatever. And so one of the swag things he had out his table was a long live Grand bracelet. And so
yes.
I stood in a line to get that for you because I think your birthday had literally been like the day before.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
So I couldn't resist.
There you go. Yeah, because we all stand Grand here on this podcast.
Yes.
We all want
Grand.
Yes, that's right. We all just want the best for Grand. She needs to. We need to put more smiles on Grand's face. We need to give her more reasons to smile.
Yes.
But taking a sip of my grumpy monk there. We are today not talking about Grand. We are talking today about the next episode in our review of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is the 15th episode. It is entitled Bato of the Water Tribe, and it was directed by Giancarlo Volpe and written by Ian Wilcox, and it debuted on October 7th, 2005. And this episode, basically we get more kind of introduction to a member of the Water Tribe. So we get kind of more background or insight into Sokka and Katara's growing up, because even though the first episode we were actually in the Water Tribe, we only got limited background on Sokka and Katara. Like, we knew that they were being raised now by their grand. We knew that Sokka was kind of in charge of the safety of the village, and that their father had gone basically to fight the Fire Nation. But in this one we get a little bit more background as to kind of how that affects the two of them. And we also for the first time in a couple of episodes actually get to see what's going on with Zuko and Iroh. We haven't seen them in a little bit, a point which they kind of discuss in the episode, because we see them visiting the places that Aang and the gang have been while Zuko and Iroh have been, I guess, fixing their ship from the storm, because that's the last time that we saw them, was in that episode. But this episode starts off with Aang and Sokka finding a giant sword made of something that looks like bone, but Sokka calls it a whale-toothed sword. And I mean, you can tell just by looking at the thing, the colors that are used and kind of the way that it's dressed, that this is a Water Tribe weapon, even before Sokka calls it out. Like,
well, it's made of a whale tooth.
Yeah, I mean, it's like probably not something that the Fire Nation is going to be making, or the Earth Kingdom. So yeah, telegraphed a little bit, but as you're thinking, I think that's a Water Tribe weapon, Sokka even says it's a Water Tribe weapon.
That's a hint.
And we're right. Yeah. But at this point, Sokka starts basically showing off his tracking skills. And I wrote down, I was like, Sokka is doing his best Aragorn impression, because this actually really reminded me of the scene in the Two Towers where Aragorn basically just starts like telling us everything that happened in this battle just by looking at the ground. And Sokka's doing like a similar thing. He's just like, oh, okay, there was a battle here, and then these people went off here, and and we follow it all the way to the water where the tracks end. But they do find a vessel that looks like a water tribe vessel. And eventually they do kind of come to the understanding that while this vessel was part of their dad's group, it is not their dad's vessel. So they already know that it's not their dad, but it does look like a member of his crew basically might be nearby. So they kind of start looking for him. And this is around the time that we meet the character of Bato, which, hold on. I know I had... Oh, there he is. Yes. So we get the character of Bato, which, according to this picture, is half mummy. Because he is covered in lots of bandages, in addition to his water tribe garb. But I will say, it's interesting because as he first comes up, we hear his voice, and Sokka says his name, but the way Sokka says his name, like it's kind of like, Bato? Like, this guy? We got this guy? So like if you just listen to it, you would think that maybe like Bato is like, like the screw up of the gang or something like that. Like it's
clearly he is, because he's left behind with a bunch of bandages and turned into
right. Yeah, it does kind of set up like the village idiot. But we start, later on we see no. I think, even though Sokka's already said that it's not his dad, I think he was still kind of holding out hope. But yeah.
How long are we supposed to understand Bato has been here? Because like he talks as if he's been there for a while.
Sure.
And obviously, Sokka's dad left a long time ago.
Well, I mean, I will say, obviously he's been left there to convalesce.
Yes.
So obviously Bato left the water tribe at the same time that their dad did.
Yes.
And I would guess that in this battle that Sokka is kind of been looking at, Bato got injured. And, we even see that in a scene later on that Bato was entrusted to a nearby abbey to be taken care of by the sisters.
Got all that.
I mean, I would imagine, just based on like his bandages, that it's been like a couple of months at the very least. I mean, you said it seems like their dad left a while ago. I don't necessarily know that he left like, obviously, however long.
Well, I mean, left the water tribe.
The water tribe, right? Yeah. So
yeah, years ago.
Like I said, yeah. I mean, just based on the flashback that we get, it looks like that happened at least 2 to 4 years ago. I would say.
I want to say
Sokka looks just a little bit younger than Katara is now.
I mean, but Sokka's like 15 or something now. He seems like 10 or 8 or something in that flashback.
Oh, see, I would have said he was like 12.
Okay.
Just because he doesn't look that much shorter than like Aang is, and his voice is only pitched like a little bit higher than. I was thinking he was like 12 or 13.
It's hard to tell with boys. Dan didn't hit 5 feet until he was like a junior in high school. I hit 5 feet in the 5th grade.
Right. But yeah, I mean, so anywhere from, I would say 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
We would say, that he's that dad has left, and obviously Bato left at the same time. So yeah, I would say that dad left Bato. I would say no more than 6 months.
Okay.
I would say conservatively more like 3.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I feel like at a certain point, like he shouldn't be wearing bandages if he's healing. Like
I mean, it depends on
If
what
it's a
type. If these
burn.
are, it depends on what the injury was.
Yeah,
Like
I guess
if
so.
these are bandages still like covering up an open wound,
Yeah,
or if they're just more like a treatment.
Yeah,
that
it's
is
easy to remember they are fighting with
being-
people who throw fire. So yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
I mean, we've got a cat at the shelter recovering from burns, and she just got her bandages off recently,
yeah,
and she's been there since May.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, but yeah, so obviously, you know, we don't know exactly the extent of his injuries, but yeah, I wouldn't say any more than 6 months.
Okay.
Bato
Yeah, I
has
wouldn't even
been
think it's
away
that
from the
long.
tribe. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. I would think honestly more like 3.
I suppose part of what's throwing me here is my mental impression that like Sokka and Katara's dad left like 5 years ago, and,
Sure.
and that somehow they got to this point and Bato just got left behind. Yeah, so
Right. Well, I mean, also, you know,
and the longer
remember
they're
that
this point, the less use a map to him is has any use.
right. Yeah. I mean, it would, you know, obviously this contingent of water tribe men or, you know, the army or whatever it is, are not going to a particular spot. They're just going wherever they can fight the Fire Nation. So, you know, they could be in any area of the world kind of thing.
And that brings up something I was going to ask later, but I'll do it now to segue it. Did I miss how there is a map? Because again, if they're just going off to fight the Fire Nation, how is there a map to where he is?
Well, okay, so I mean, you know, we're gonna get there, but a messenger brings a map. Basically, they have what I would imagine is that at this point, Sokka and Katara's dad feels like Bato is probably close to ready to join them. So it sends them a location of where he is now. Come and meet us. We will be here for a few months.
All right. I think I just wasn't clear that the messenger was from the dad. Okay.
I mean, you know, in a scene right before the messenger shows up, Bato is like, I'm waiting for a message from your dad to let me know where they are.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay. Yeah. So that I can go join them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it looks like the messenger is just a standard because he's riding an ostrich, which is actually like an Earth Kingdom thing. So he's an Earth Kingdom messenger, but they probably just were like, "Hey, can you take this message to our guy?"
Yes,
and I'm pretty sure that was Scott Menville, which means
just it was. It 100% was. Yeah, and I will say there are a few episodes coming up where I heard his voice, and I always just write down Scott Menville.
Yes.
Yep.
I would like to point out a fairly incompetent messenger, by the way. If his job is like, please deliver this to our soldier who we left behind, and he's just like, hey, you know this guy? Yes, yeah, there you go.
All right, here, take it.
I'm gonna go.
Gotta go.
12-year-old.
Yes,
because they can totally be trusted.
Well, I think it also brings home the fact that this guy is just a messenger that they flagged down. He's not one of their guys. He's not. He's just doing a job that he probably didn't get paid very well for.
He reports back
doing the bare minimum.
Yes, he reports back. Did you give it to Bato? No. Like, did you give it to someone like?
See, that's the thing. I don't think he's reporting back. I think he's doing this on his way to do other jobs.
Hey, you're going this way, right? Can you stop by and give this to Bato, or make sure it gets to Bato?
Yes.
Right.
I just like the thought of what that report back would be, at least, which is that, like, did he give it to Bato? No. Did you take it to his place where he was? No. Did he give it to anyone? Anyone at that location? No.
Well, I think they were close enough to the Abbey that he assumed.
I gave it to a 10-year-old on the beach who said yes.
Who recognized Bato's name.
Yes. Well, no, he didn't know Bato's. I mean, did he say Bato, or did the other guy ask, do you know Bato? And he said yes.
I think it's closer to the latter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, he doesn't necessarily know the name Bato. He was asked, it's like, hey, you know this guy? Yes. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so getting back, we've already covered like half of the episode.
Yep.
But just by skipping ahead. But
Well, that's partly because the latter half of this episode moves fast.
yeah.
So
But we've kind of already set up what's going on with this side of the story. So let's go ahead and set up what's going on. We're going to check back in with Zuko and Iroh, which, as I said, we have not seen for a little bit. They don't mention the storm, but we haven't seen them since the storm. So we can only assume that they've been, fixing the ship. And they're just plodding along. And they get, they hear a rumble above them.
Making Zuko spill his tea.
Making Zuko spill his tea. Iroh's trying to pass along the art of calming tea. And Zuko's having a hard enough time concentrating, but he gets bumped, and they go to see what's going on, and they encounter a really badass bounty hunter. On an animal called, which she calls, I believe the word she used was a seershoe, which looks like a mix between like a badger and
mole.
I don't know, like
it has like a mole's nose.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean a badger. I meant a mole.
Yeah.
I'm confusing it with badger moles, which is a character that a creature that we're going to encounter later on. But it looks like a cross between a mole and I would say like a wolf.
Fair enough.
Makes sense to you guys?
Yeah, it does. It has kind of a wolf-shaped head.
Yeah. Well, and it's got like this long tail.
Yeah.
Like the tail almost makes me think fox.
Yeah. Shirshu. Shirshu.
Okay.
Yeah, Shirshu.
Okay. So a Shirshu. Okay. So so they encounter this creature which basically sees through smells and is able to basically track down people very easily. In fact, finds a stowaway, a Earth Kingdom stowaway on board the Fire Nation ship, and is able to paralyze the guy with its tongue. So Zuko immediately sees the advantage of having this bounty hunter on side. Eventually approaches the bounty hunter and gets her to track down the Avatar by way of Katara's necklace, because he still has Katara's necklace in tow, which is good because apparently the necklace that Aang made her to replace it is gone.
It's long gone.
It's gone. We never see that necklace again. So we know that they are going after them, and like I said, through a series of events we see the different places that they have been since the last time we saw since the last time we saw Zuko and Iroh. And they encounter the crazy old woman and Miyuki, to which the woman asks Miyuki, have you been causing trouble with the Fire Nation again? And it just makes me want a comic book of the adventures of Miyuki.
I would read that.
To see all the mischief that Miyuki, this unassuming cat, gets into. She is apparently the unknown enemy of the Fire Nation. She, not Jet, is actually the greatest threat to the Fire Nation. She is what Jet wants to be. And the adventures of Miyuki.
No, imagine them teaming up.
Yeah. Oh no, Miyuki would have nothing to do with Jet.
Miyuki would be a solo.
Jet is not in Miyuki's league.
Miyuki's like, I play by myself.
Yeah. She's like, no, you are
an amateur, Jet. Yeah. Go away.
Exactly. Like I said, Jet wishes he was on the level of Miyuki. But yes, they also encounter the last village. We don't get a whole lot of we don't get the weird townspeople. We do get a bit of Aunt Wu flirting with Uncle Iroh, to which I wrote down, Iroh can get it, apparently.
Yeah.
I honestly would have liked to see a little bit more fun flirtation between the two of them. Because unfortunately later on in the episode, they make Iroh seem really creepy by kind of creeping on the bounty hunter, which I was not a fan of. It's like, Iroh can be a little horny, but let's not, play into, kind of creepy uncle vibes with Iroh. That's not where I want to see Iroh. But either way, they don't stay there long. Go ahead.
The bounty hunter, because I had to check on this. Her name was June, which honestly does not sound much like a Avatar world name. But
no.
Also, it doesn't sound like a bounty hunter name. Like, oh, watch out for June.
Mm-hmm.
But she is voiced by Jennifer Hale.
Voice acting royalty.
Yes,
I love her so freaking much.
Exactly.
She's the voice of, is it Cinderella?
Yes.
Now? Yeah, that's right.
She's
also Commander Shepard. She is in the Hex Girls.
Yep.
Okay.
She's done a ton of stuff. I recognize her name originally from Justice League Unlimited, because she did voice of like half the female villains in that show.
Okay.
I got to interview her one time. It was really cool.
Nice. Oh, you got to interview her?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Nice.
What
her and like half the other people from Overwatch. It was like a big MomoCon panel.
Okay. I might have worked her table at some point. There is that. Oh yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, she has an enormous list of video game credits down here at the bottom of the Wikipedia page. That's right.
There you go.
Right. Yes. And
with Samus.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
I feel like the I guess I knew her name at this point too, but the one that came up that I just wanted to say out loud was in the Superman animated series. She was the voice of Gispitless. I'm still getting that wrong. Mr. Mixius Pitlick's girlfriend.
I was about to say has to have something to do with Mr. Mixius Pitlick. I can never. Yeah.
Mixius Pitlick.
Yeah. But yeah, back to this episode. So yeah. I will say she does give Zuko and Iroh a fun nickname of the two of them. When they come to basically hire her, she's like, "Oh, it's Angry Boy and Uncle Lazy."
Yes.
Which she didn't spend much time with them. It's really funny that she was able to drill down to that immediately. And I will say at this point, I actually like the relationship that they're setting up with her and Uncle Iroh, because at this point it's just kind of playful, because Iroh actually thinks that nickname is funny. Yeah. Going back to the Aang and the gang with Bato, obviously Sokka and Katara are having a great time hanging out with Bato, because they haven't seen anybody from this group of men. They haven't heard from their dad, all of this kind of stuff. So they're kind of getting caught up on what was happening. They're getting to enjoy stewed sea prunes, which is apparently a popular dish in the Water Tribe. Aang and Momo actually not fans.
I'm very curious as to what the sea prunes actually are.
Yeah, not sure. I mean, obviously it's something that they find in the ocean, but yeah, I mean, I would imagine, it probably would be something similar to like sea cucumbers, but just purple. Yeah.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I will say, I did write down one question, because in this world, we have already been introduced to the fact that the airbenders were mostly monks. And now we encounter an abbey full of, they call them sisters, but the equivalent of nuns. Those are usually associated with religious affiliations. What is the religion in this world that these monks, I mean, would it just be an overall spiritualism? Because that really seems to be the only the existence of the spirit world.
Yeah.
Kind of seems to be the only, like, there hasn't been an introduction of any other sort of like deity or anything like that. Like, do you guys think that it's just kind of like an observance of the natural world and the spirit world kind of thing?
Probably.
Like a
And I mean,
dedication to
with that being Earth Kingdom, it may have something to do with Avatar Kyoshi, like praying to ancestors or whatever.
Yeah, there's a possibility for that as well.
I hadn't thought about that much, but that makes sense.
Because it's not brought up. I mean, obviously it's not super important, but it is an interesting thing to think about.
Given the Eastern influence of the show in general, I would assume it'd be something along the lines of Buddhism or Shintoism or something like that.
Sure.
Where it's just kind of a, it is a spiritualism. It
Right.
is,
Yeah, I was about to say, just given the nature of this world, I think it's less likely that it's a specific named deity,
that's the
and
thing.
more just like the natural world, the spiritual influence.
Because that's what you have in a lot of Eastern religions. You don't necessarily have like a deity at the top,
Right.
Even to the point, like, even if like the Buddha here, like, is often sort of treated like that, he's still not a deity. He's just someone,
right. He's more of an He's more of a prophet. Than an actual, like,
functions more like a prophet, because he's the one who sort of uncovered like the truth of what the real reality actually is.
Yeah.
So that's what I imagine the religion works like in this. And honestly, I would expect it to differ between the different nations.
Sure.
Some may be more into ancestor worship than others, but I would expect that to be an element here, to be honest.
Right.
Even if we just don't see it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense with what we've seen of the cultures here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that would be an interesting thing to talk about. But, as we are seeing, obviously Aang and Katara, or sorry, not Aang, Sokka and Katara are having a great time catching up with Bato. I was looking at it as I was going through clips. Aang is starting to feel left out, and you can totally understand why, because there are literally whole clips where Aang is completely inconsequential. It almost seems in the majority of the scenes like Bato doesn't even recognize that Aang is there. Like in the very first clip, the only sign that Bato acknowledges Aang's existence, because Bato comes up and he's like, Sokka, Katara, and then Aang introduces himself. Bato does not say anything to him. He then has an entire conversation with Sokka and Katara, and as they're walking to the camp, Bato just kind of looks behind him and kind of waves, like, oh, you can come too. That's the only acknowledgement to Aang at all. So I totally get why Aang feels kind of left out at this point. And I mean, obviously, Bato knows Sokka and Katara, but it still would have been nice for Bato to
just a simple hello, nice
verbally,
to meet you.
Yes, verbally acknowledge Aang, because the only time he even says his name is when Aang is putting on a headdress and he's like, oh, Aang, don't touch that. It's the first time. In fact, I think the only time that he says later on during the ice dodging, he does say his name. But that's the first time that he said his name, is literally to reprimand him. Just like, yeah, kind of get where Aang's coming from here a little bit. But yeah, it is that feeling that causes Aang to walk away. And of course, he walks away immediately after Bato pitches the idea of, hey, I'm expecting this message. You guys should come and you can see your dad, kind of thing. And he stays long enough just to hear Sokka and Katara say, oh, we would love that. That would be great. But of course, the moment Aang leaves, Sokka and Katara are like, but we have this really important thing that is more important. We will see dad later. Aang does not hear that. So when he gets the message from the can't be bothered messenger played by Scott Menville, he is not in a hurry to pass this along, because he believes that the arrival of this message is basically the separation of him and his friends. and he's not looking forward to that. I get it. But again, had you just stayed a couple more seconds, Aang, you know, there would have been no conflict in this episode.
Well, had Bato acknowledged Aang in the first place.
I was about to say, yeah, Bato shares a little bit of the blame here because,
and he is the adult in the situation, so you know he kind of does.
Yeah, I mean, still, obviously, Aang, you know, hiding the message is. I understand later why Sokka and Katara feel betrayed because, you know, I mean, at a certain point, it looks like Aang is not only not delivering it, but actively trying to get rid of the message. So, you know, that's messed up. You know, you know, because, you know, it's word of how their dad's doing, but it's also Bato's way back to these people. And, you know, before this is revealed, of course, though, Sokka gets to enjoy a rite of passage with Bato, which is something that they call ice dodging. Yes. Yeah. Which is basically, you know, it's when they're 13. So we know that dad left. No, I'm pretty sure he said in the episode 13.
Okay.
13. So we know that dad left before Sokka was 13.
Gotcha.
So me saying he could have been 13. Nope. Apparently he was at least he was at most 11 or 12 when dad left. So yeah, he leaves, or sorry, dad left before he was able to go ice dodging. So Bato is like, you know what? I'm going to take you ice dodging. And there's no ice there, but there are rocks. And, you know, basically he tells Sokka, you're in command. You've got to steer the ship, and you've got to give notes or, you know, commands to both Katara and Aang, which, especially with Aang, I'm just like, that is really kind of not setting up Sokka for success, because Katara, you know, just being around the culture probably knows, you know, the terms or whatever, but Aang is not from a seafaring people.
Nope.
We even see that a lot of Sokka's commands, Aang doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, but he still somehow is able to figure it out, and they are able to, you know, successfully ice dodge. But even then, and I actually really enjoyed this part, because up to this point, we have seen that the majority of the time that bending comes into play, Sokka is complaining about it. But we actively see Sokka actually, once again, crafting a clever plan using bending in his strategy, because he is plotting through a series of rocks that he can't go in between, but he decides to use the bending to basically go above the rocks, which I thought was really creative, and also a moment of maturity for Sokka, because he's finally starting to see bending not as, you know, a nuisance to him, which is the way he's been treating it a lot in this show, but as an attribute that he can use. So really smart, I thought. But yeah, so excuse me. So, you know, they finished the ice dodging, and, you know, as part of this, Bato starts giving them all, like, you know, symbols from the tribe or whatever, and specifically tells Aang that his symbol is for trust, and that he's now an honorary member of the tribe, which, of course, I will say, Bato, if there is one skill that Bato seems really skilled at, it is creating guilt in other people, whether he means to or not. Because there are several instances in this episode where he really builds guilt in someone to, you know, basically come to the correct decision. Later on, it's Sokka and Katara, but at this point, it is Aang. And again, Bato has no way of knowing, what Aang has done, but he really guilts him into admitting, no, look, you can't trust me. I hid this message, blah, blah, blah. At which point, like I said, Sokka and Katara blow up, understandably. And it looks like they are now going to break with Aang, which, upsets Aang, but he also feels like, I was in the wrong here. I messed up. And yeah, it's sad because it looks like they're going to be parting. But it's at this point that our two storylines start to converge. Because Iroh and Zuko and the bounty hunter are zooming in on the location. Sokka and Katara are leaving, and I made the note because they start to leave, and Aang just looks at one of the sisters and he goes, I should probably go too. And she's just like, that would be best.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? We heard what you did. Nobody's a big fan of yours right now, Aang. You need to go.
She's like, I don't care if you're the Avatar.
Yeah, which, later on, Aang apparently still hasn't left. And the sister comes up and she's like, you need to go. And he's like, I get it. Nobody likes me. She's like, no, I mean, you're in danger. At which point Aang realizes that, because they tell Aang that Zuko is using the bracelet or the necklace to track them, so he knows that Sokka and Katara are in danger. Sokka and Katara do get found by the group. I will say this entire time, June has basically been under the assumption that Zuko is trying to track down an ex-girlfriend. And she makes the point. He's like, no wonder she broke up with you. She is way too pretty for you. And I was just like, man, slamming Zuko. Just yeah, she's kind of brutal. But they paralyze Sokka and Katara, and but are still trying to track down Aang. They find something that among their stuff that Aang had touched, which just happens to be the map. Because I forgot to mention, at this point, they didn't get too far before Bato again, without meaning to, guilt trips Sokka and Katara into realizing, yeah, we probably shouldn't have left Aang. Let's go, help him out, because that's the most important thing. And so Bato's not there, but he did give them the map, because I guess Bato just has a photographic memory and knows where he's supposed to go. But he gives them the map so they can
are,
find
and
later.
just needed to know the location. Like, oh, I'm at Walmart. Okay,
Yeah,
I know where that is.
Yeah.
He was just trying to find his way back to the monastery, right?
Bato?
Yeah.
No, Bato was trying to find his way to wherever the Aang or Sokka and Katara's dad is now.
Gotcha.
Basically, the camp of the Water Tribe soldiers.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very possible that it's a camp that they've used before.
Yeah.
And so he's been there.
But it's all about, he doesn't need the map to tell him the path there. He needs the map to tell him where is the destination.
Which location.
He's
just like Amanda said.
Yeah.
And but he gives the Sokka and Katara the map just in case they want to catch up.
Yes, because they are familiar
on.
with the Earth Kingdom. Yeah, they need a map to find out the names of places and whatnot.
Right. But yeah, I will say it's in this scene that we see, because as we said, the Shirshu sees through smell, and it's made very plain that Katara's scent is like a purplish, but Aang apparently is blue, which caused me to ask, what colors do we think the other characters are? What color scents do we think the other characters are?
We know Zuko's red.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that works. So if Zuko is red, what color is Iroh?
I want to say Iroh is green because of green tea.
Okay. And I mean, he's kind. I mean, even though he's a firebender, he's kind of earthy.
I was gonna go with more of an orange or a brown, maybe.
Sure. Yeah,
could
something
work too.
something kind of a warm color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Warm, but a little cooler than the fiery hot red. Yeah.
Sure. What about Sokka?
I could see him as like orange, maybe yellow.
A yellow, maybe. See, I was seeing him as maybe a shade of blue, maybe more like an ice blue.
An ice blue, yeah.
Whereas
I could see that. Or
Aang
like
is like
kind
a
of
baby
a smoky
blue
color.
Yeah, maybe almost like a blue gray.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that works for me. But yeah, so they do eventually track down Aang, and they have actually a pretty interesting fight where everyone gets involved, including Appa. Appa comes out of nowhere while this the Shearshu, this animal, is trying to attack Aang, and Appa just headbutts this thing and like sends it into a wall. And I was like,
Dang,
you do not mess with Appa. Appa is badass. I will say we actually get some really great fighting sequences here with Appa, because initially he's just kind of owning this thing, but even when the Shearshu kind of gets the advantage, we see Appa tries to like fly or whatever, and the Shearshu catches him on the leg. He has to land, but Appa's able to fight through it. Yeah. He does eventually like paralyze Appa, but he has to hit him like 6 times.
It does
like, man.
If this thing is putting off some kind of paralyzing toxin, and if you're going to assume you can't adjust the dosage of it, then yeah, if it's not killing,
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a huge animal, but we see that Appa is fighting through it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So I think that it's also showing us not just this, because I think if it was just the size, then Appa would just, go without showing any fight. I think that it's showing us Appa's will.
Oh, no, it absolutely is still showing. Yeah, it's not that he doesn't have any effect at all. I mean, like, it knocks them down for an hour. Like, but yeah, it's still going to have an effect on him.
Yeah.
But he can still, through willpower, get through it. And then if you hit him enough times, then
But yeah, I was just like, there are times when, because at a certain point in the series, you do realize how much affection you have for Appa. And you kind of start to wonder, it's like, okay, how did they build this? Like, where did that come from? And it's scenes like this that you don't necessarily think about necessarily in the moment or like later on. But like when I watch it now, I'm just like, well, yeah, no wonder we have such respect and, love of Appa, because we see things like this where he is, 100%, he is loyal to Aang. He is defending Aang. He is, pushing off things that are, taking other people out easily, and he's fighting them off, kind of thing. It's not to the extent, but it's like that scene with Boromir in Fellowship of the Ring. Like it takes so many hits just to take him down. Like no matter what you felt about the character before, seeing something like that gives you an amount of respect for that character.
Yes.
So yeah, I really enjoyed seeing that. But yeah, we get to see a really cool fighting sequence with all of that. But eventually, and we even get the bit that Loren mentioned earlier, where at a certain point in the sequence, Sokka starts to mention, he's like, oh, I think I'm starting to get some feeling back. And immediately bits of building fall. Like him and Katara are sitting right next to each other, but they fall just on Sokka.
Poor
Yeah.
Sokka.
And he just goes, ow.
Yes.
Maybe the fortune teller was correct.
I mean, I will say, though, that wasn't Sokka's own making.
No.
But still, it does, like, he is, you know, like, if only one person is going to get hurt, it's going to be Sokka.
It's a nice touch in this fight that it keeps being punctuated with a handful of little comedic bits.
Little comedic bits.
A minute later, we got Iroh just shoplifting, honestly.
Yeah, which I was like, that seems a little out of character for Iroh, but, you know, but okay.
Yeah.
He's sampling.
But eventually they do decide, hey, these sisters actually specialize in making perfumes. And this thing sees by smell. Let's just dump this perfume all over the place. And it will mess with the creature. And it does. Yeah. We see them basically like drench the creature in this perfume, which causes it to go crazy. And it just starts paralyzing everybody. Zuko and, well, really just Zuko and June.
Yeah.
And, you know, then it just kind of runs off because it just can't see, and it's trying to get rid of its overload.
Just short circuits.
Yeah. At which point we do get and I don't know. I mean, I think that the scene itself was okay, but just kind of the way that they played it off, because when Iroh sees that June got hit, he goes and he catches her and he's like, no. And then we see him like laying on the ground, and Zuko's just like, Uncle, I didn't see you get hit by the thing, because he's laying under June.
Yeah.
And Iroh's just like, shh. And to which June is just like, ew. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't really like this.
He was providing cushion.
But at which point he can just be like, yeah, but it's either me or the ground. Which would you rather? Like, there's a way to play that off where it's funny and not creepy. And I think that they went a little more to the creepy side. And I'm just, you know, I'm like, I like Iroh so much. Don't give me any reason to not like him, you know. But yeah. Anyway, I mean, let's see. I think that's really like the end of my notes. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to talk about with this episode?
Broadly speaking, the episode started to irritate me when you know, the messenger comes, gives Aang the map, and he promptly hides it, because that feels kind of the sort of pettiness that I expect from like the misunderstandings of a children's cartoon.
Sure, but again, I think it makes sense that Aang would feel that way.
Yeah, it makes a certain amount of sense. I kind of wish it'd been played off slightly differently, like he just sort of put it away, and then when he gets back to them, then they said something, and he just decided to hold back on sharing it. But the attitude of where he's just gonna like crumple it up, just like, no, I'm not gonna share this thing that's clearly important to his friends.
Sure.
Just it feels, having him do that feels out of character to a certain degree. Nonetheless, I did like when that his conscience got to him faster than I thought it would.
Sure.
In an episode like that too. So,
but I mean, they're laying it on pretty thick. I mean, Bato literally says this signifies trust.
Yeah, I know.
So
but
it's like, yeah, like I said, Bato really good at the unintentional guilt trip.
Yeah.
He is the guilt master.
Yes. But still, his conscience gets to him. He clears it up, and it's just a couple minutes later in the episode, to be honest. It's still before we've reached the second commercial break.
Sure.
So that I like to be honest, in terms of just ongoing continuity, I like that the necklace continued to play a role.
Yeah. Oh, I did forget to mention they do recover Katara's necklace at the end of the fight, and she gets it at
And
the
she
end of
gets
the
it, yeah,
episode.
yeah.
Like there's literally a fight where you can tell Zuko is trying to beat Aang, and all Aang is trying to do is get the necklace.
Yeah. But like this is episode 15. I think he got that episode back in 6 and imprisoned.
Yeah, he's had it for a while.
Yeah. So just to have that as just sort of this little element that's been floating in the background,
Yeah.
and then for it to come back and pay off is
Yeah.
a nice bit of sort of I don't know if that was
Continuity.
intentional or if it's just good storytelling in the sense that they had planned it, or if it's good storytelling in the sense of they had this element out there.
I think that they definitely did that because they planned to do something with the necklace, whether or not they had this story already in mind or
Exactly.
you know anything like that. I don't
Well,
know, but yeah, you're right. It was episode 6.
Honestly, given the fact that it's an animated series that they've greenlit an entire season at some point and they're in the works, you probably have at least a vague outline of they're going to use the necklace to track her at some point.
Right, but they might not have the story itself fleshed out yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No. I also just wanted to comment about like the final fight scene was just really impressive.
Yeah.
Both in terms of the animation and the strategy.
This series as a whole is actually pretty good at action sequences.
Yep.
And this is speaking from a person that often doesn't pay attention very much to
I
fight
can
sequences
zone out on
because
them pretty
yeah,
easily.
because most of the time you can't tell what's really going on, and it's just kind of like it's just visual noise.
But
But-
it's directed well. Have we technically seen Aang versus Zuko before?
Yes.
For them to really face off.
Yeah, I mean, in the first episode.
Okay.
They had
Nice. Okay. But no, watching them at full strength, just battling it back and forth.
Yeah.
It's visually impressive. And they're both creative and some ingenuity in the use of their powers. Which is always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one other thing I had to offer was, I did want to say the comedian who I mentioned earlier, who your bracelet. Oh, actually, no. I will say the relevant thing first, and then go to the.
Sure.
One is that there is a line in the first two-parter episode where Katara says, 2 years ago, my father and the men of my tribe journeyed to the Earth Kingdom. So, like, she specifically says in the first episode, or the first or second episode, that they left 2 years earlier.
Which would put the oldest Sokka could be is 14 then.
Something else said he is 15 in the present day of the show. And that the ice thing is when you would turn 14 or whatnot. But
see, Amanda, did you look that up? Because I could have sworn they said
13. It's 14.
It is 14. I could have sworn they said 13. Okay.
And I also watched it last night, so I got it.
I did too. That's
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
The comedian I got your Gran bracelet from. His name was Brett Druck. And the joke, for the record, that led into the whole Gran joke was he was talking about being on tour and being in some rural, gift shop or whatnot, and they had a sign. You've probably seen these signs before yourself that says, like, in this house we don't call 911. And it has like guns. Like
I was about to say, yeah.
Graphic of it here, where I'm showing the camera for
geez.
podcast listeners, with like guns and bullets saying, like, in this house we don't call 911. And so his joke for this is like, oh no, grandma's having a stroke. Call 911. We don't call 911 in this house.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, there you go. Anything from you, Amanda? Anything you want to mention before we go into segments?
The weird thing about this episode is it really feels like it's two separate episodes. Just because, to me, it just feels like two separate ones because I always forget that the Bato episode is the June episode, and it's
I mean, a lot of times the thing going on with Zuko and Iroh will kind of link in a little bit more to what is actively happening with Aang and the gang. Whereas this one, the only connecting material is that they're going to be meeting up with them, that they're after them. I mean, because I will say this is one of those episodes that's, aside from the fact that it introduces Bato, it introduces the bounty hunter, the episode itself is a little forgettable.
Yeah,
to me.
it honestly feels a little weird that the episode is named after Bato and then he still disappears halfway through. And
Sure.
really doesn't contribute an awful lot to the
Well, because
plot.
let's
Like,
be honest, Bato is not that exciting of a character.
no, he's not, but it just makes it
He's
interesting.
exciting for what he represents and
No.
what he introduces.
It's
But he
valuable to
himself
me.
is not that interesting of a character.
It's valuable to meet him. I have no qualms with Bato. It's just
Right.
odd they named the episode after him.
Sure.
Yeah. By the way, when I was reading a wiki earlier, it referred to Team Avatar as like the at least the wiki's name for Sokka and Katara.
Yeah, which
and
is a name that the show will actually introduce later on.
That's maybe that's why I don't like that, because a second ago it sounded like we were possibly setting up for the term like the Aang Gang, and that's a much better name. For
I
this.
will say that actually I think is a title that they pitch at one point, like in
okay.
season 3, the Aang Gang, which is why I've been going with Aang and the Gang.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So no, I got nothing else. I think
Yeah.
that's all my notes.
All right.
As far as I can tell. Oh, other than this is random. When I was watching this on Paramount Plus, as I'm sure you were
Yeah.
too, and so it ran an ad ahead of it.
Yeah.
And probably just because I don't watch Nickelodeon. Now, I haven't had cable in years. I don't watch
Right.
children's programming live. It ran an ad ahead of time for something called Beast Lab, which honestly gave me like childlike nostalgia feels for watching this commercial for like this
Sure.
weird little kid's toy I've never heard of. Whereas like
Right.
you put your thumbprint on it and you pour in like the goos and whatnot, and it'll make you a monster that you can
Right.
fight. It's
Yeah.
just-
Okay, I'm looking this toy up now.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it had all of the feel of like a toy ad from 1992. Just with
Sure.
them-
I was gonna say, because it sounds like a Play-Doh style product.
That's what you'd think it would be. It doesn't
Yeah.
quite turn out to be that way. The
Okay.
final product looks good, but it's not
Yeah.
something like you really helped manufacture. Other than like it does seem to put your thumbprint like on the toy.
Interesting.
Yeah. You find an ad for it?
Beast Labs. Yeah.
Exclusive glow in the dark beast.
That's it. Yeah.
Ooh,
Experiment to
cool.
create your beast. Oh, and you get like this mist that comes out. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
that's
I
a
would have
little
been all about
post
this.
set. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
No.
All
I'm
right.
not impressed by the toy, but the ad just like gave me the
Sure.
yes.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the sort of thing I would have been all about.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know that toy commercials have really changed that much. Like the maybe just the effects and stuff, but like the overall tone and approach is
But do they
pretty
still have
similar.
those catchy songs that they used to? That's the thing.
No,
That's
I've heard
what
that
I
full
told
page.
them.
Back in the 90s, there was just like
Yeah.
lots of commercials with like jingles, and you don't get
Yeah.
commercial jingles.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's what made them like memorable. Like
Yeah.
freaking chicken limbo.
Yes.
All right. Well, let us go ahead and let's get into our segments. And we are, of course, going to start with our first segment, which is our My Cabbages moment. My Cabbages! Which is, of course, the part of the episode where we discuss our favorite or most interesting scene for the episode. Loren, we will start out with you, sir. What is your My Cabbages moment?
I frankly discussed it a bit earlier. Just the fight scene and the comic asides that were inserted through it.
Sure.
The whole bit was just executed, in my opinion, very strongly. Little moments of levity in there. Good use of Appa again. In battle mode Appa.
Yeah.
Is there a toy
Is that
for
going to be this episode title, Battle Mode Appa?
battle mode Appa? But no, just like I said, sometimes fight scenes have trouble holding my attention, but this one was well done and a good end to the episode.
All right. Amanda.
I mean, really any part with June in it because I freaking love her. But I think specifically when she's arm wrestling and then she sees Zuko and Iroh, it's like, well, if it isn't Angry Boy and Uncle Lazy, and then coming up with a price point, and she's like, make it your weight, and we got a deal. And he just
that was great.
that was so
Honestly,
cute.
those interactions between Iroh and June, I enjoyed because that makes it seem like, oh, playful, fun interaction. When it seems like Iroh is just like, I just want to feel her against me, that's when it's like, oh, creepy. I don't need that. Let's have Iroh enjoying June making fun of him. That's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am going to kind of reinforce what Loren said. I enjoyed that entire fight sequence, but if I had to pick a specific moment, that headbutt from Appa was just amazing. Just that initial, because we don't even see Appa before that. He just comes in out of nowhere and headbutts that creature and just throws it into the wall. And seems like that creature is out of commission for a good little bit, I'm just like, and just kind of the reaction shot we get from Appa after that, like, don't mess with Appa kind of thing, was just great. Loved that. All right, well, let's move on to our Mako Award, which is our award that we give to our favorite and most interesting character for the episode. I'm pretty sure I know it, but Amanda, go ahead. Who are you giving your Mako Award to?
I'm giving it to Jennifer Hale as June.
All right. As expected, yeah, she's a fun character here. And was good to see her in action. Loren, what about you?
I'm gonna give it to who I thought Amanda was about to give it to, and gonna ruin my moment there. I feel like giving it to Appa. For stepping up, saving the day, and showing his value in a fight.
Yeah, usually Amanda and I are the ones that are in sync, but for this episode, it seems like it's Loren, because I'm also giving it to Appa.
Yeah.
Like I said, at a certain point in this show, you realize how much you care about Appa, and it's moments like this that are the reason. Like Appa just really showing up and showing off why he is such an important, integral character, and why we feel about Appa the way that we don't about other animal characters in later iterations of this series. They just really do a good job of making you side with and value Appa. And so, yeah, I really enjoy Appa in this episode, so he gets my Mako Award.
And the reason I initially said I thought Amanda was gonna, steal my thunder on that one was because briefly earlier, for those listening to the podcast, Appa joined us for this podcast.
Yeah.
Where did Appa go?
Well, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you not nominated Appa previously for this?
I feel like I have, but I
think
can't
you
remember.
did at least. I was going to say I can't remember the exact.
I feel like
episode,
I've nominated Appa at least once.
Yeah. But
normally I would, and had Jennifer Hale not been in this one,
sure. And
if
honestly, I thought about giving it to her until I remembered how much I loved the scene with Appa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, if it hadn't been, for that sequence, I probably would have given it to June, because she was a great character. But you got to acknowledge Appa when he gets a great moment, and he really did in this episode. All right, well, then let's go ahead and let us rate this on our Avatar State meter. This is where we can give the show a rating from 1 to 5. 5, of course, being the best, the show at full power. 1 being the worst, might deal the show a fatal blow. Amanda, what is your Avatar? What is your rating for this episode?
This is hard. I'm going to go on ahead and give it a 4, just because of everything with Appa and with June, because that introduces one of my favorite characters in the series, and then we gain new appreciation for Appa.
All right.
I'll mirror that also with a 4. I really like the latter part of the episode, but yeah, the first part of the episode, like we were saying earlier, kind of feels divorced from the latter half to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily all hold together as a single 22-minute really solidly.
Right.
But it ended strong, and so yeah, 4 feels about right.
Yeah, I'm going to give this just below that. I'm going to give it a 3.5 because, as we mentioned, there are some great moments in this episode, but I feel like this episode as a whole has often been kind of forgettable for me. Like I said, enjoy a lot of the great moments, but as a whole, it's just not my favorite. So 3.5, I think, still a decent rating for this episode.
It does give me hope for how good this show is going to get, that y'all have given the last 2 episodes like 3.5, 3.7.
Well, you've been giving them,
So,
yeah.
But it means that as far as y'all are concerned, like the show gets much better than this, so markedly better. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
Sure. Well, then let us get into the final segment, which is what I keep forgetting that we forgot it in the last episode while I was actively prepping for it. And then right when we got to it, I forgot it. But the most important question, Loren, is this your favorite show?
No, the last 2 episodes have been pretty strong. Last episode, like we discussed at the time, was my favorite episode up to that point and remains my favorite episode to now. Sure. Even after a full additional 22 minutes of viewing. Right. But no, still not. It's on an upward trajectory. We'll see where it finally lands.
Where would you say? I think the last we heard, it was in your top 500. Is that what we landed on?
That feels like you're asking that as a serious question. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we got to track it somehow. So because expecting it to be your favorite show obviously is we're overshooting the mark.
Yeah.
But
has it cracked like the top 300 at this point?
Right. 3, 2, like where would you say?
Do I need to go back and like rank all my shows? Just like do one of those matchup. Like I saw somebody like rank all the Doctor Who episodes ever, like through some method of doing it.
That would be so hard.
Apparently,
hard.
Apparently, you can set up some system so it'll do that. So it'll just like ask you which of these 2 is better. Which of these 2 is better?
Yeah, I mean, you can do like a flick fights thing.
Yes, and then it'll basically do that. It'll just sort of like then just populate everything that way. So I suppose if I went in and like just tried to populate some chart of like all my favorite shows ever,
sure, then
I could see maybe where this falls. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I've seen 300 shows ever. I probably have. But sure. Why? Let's say top 450. We'll bring it up to top 450 or something like that.
All right.
Progress.
Yeah,
exactly.
Progress.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to rule out the possibility that like it could turn around and be a favorite thing of mine. Like, just if we just want to limit to like children's cartoons, like I have the old Blu-ray set of Gravity Falls over there because I just heard that show a few years ago and I love Gravity Falls.
Sure.
I have cosplayed as Dipper Pines.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not hard.
Yeah, exactly. It's an easy thing to do. Yeah. But the most liked picture of me, if you go to my Twitter, which I'll plug right now. You can find me online at Loren Collins at Twitter. The pinned photo of me is, I believe, the most liked photo period of me on the internet. It's not a selfie, which is not why it's not the most liked selfie.
Right.
But it's a photo my mom took of me and my dad dressed as Dipper Pines and my dad as Grunkle Stan.
Grunkle Stan. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that one's
like I made my dad dress up like Grunkle Stan for Halloween.
Yeah.
No, but so yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like that kind of show could still. I'm not sure it's top 10, but Gravity Falls might be in like my top 30 shows of all time or something like that. I don't know.
And we're aiming for 20 at least.
We're aiming for 20.
So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. Should I keep plugging my specials or since I already started past?
Well, let me go ahead and plug mine and then you can jump back in. All right. So, yes, we want to let you guys know where you can contact us. You, of course, can contact me at The Flying Cow Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can also email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. Make sure to check out all of our stuff on the YouTube channel, the Flying Cow YouTube channel, as well as, once again, the podcast feed. Check out everything that we've got going on. If there is anything that does not fit on the podcast feed, we will make sure to let you know to get it over on YouTube. But also don't forget to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/theflyingcow. Loren, go ahead and continue your plugs.
All right. Like I said, you can find me on Twitter at Loren Collins. Go look at that photo of me and my dad. I plugged this in the last episode. I'll plug it again. I have a book. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever. Bull Spotting, Finding Facts in the Age of Misinformation. And elsewhere around the web. That's the main stuff.
All right. Amanda?
You can find me on Twitter at Amanda Van Heil. You can find me on Twitch at Panda Princessa, and you can see me talking about Zelda on Zelda Universe TV on YouTube and talking about Metroid on the Shine Sparkers podcast.
All right. And we will, of course, be back next time discussing the next episode, which is entitled The Deserter. So make sure to come back and check us out for that. But until that time, move.
Mm.